The room was dimly lit, with only a few candles casting long shadows across the walls. Edgar Cayce, known worldwide as the Sleeping Prophet, sat in a comfortable chair, his eyes reflecting a wisdom that seemed to transcend ordinary human understanding. The topic of our conversation was explosive, a perspective on the soul's origin that challenged traditional biblical interpretations. Cayce leaned forward, his voice calm yet resolute, as he began to share insights that many religious institutions had systematically attempted to suppress. Before we continue, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The interviewer adjusted the recording equipment, visibly nervous about the revelations that were about to unfold. Cayce had agreed to this rare interview on the condition that nothing would be censored, no matter how controversial. His views on the soul's origin had been documented in his readings, but rarely discussed in mainstream spiritual circles. Mr. Cayce, your work has helped thousands through psychic readings while you were in a trance state. Today, you've agreed to discuss something particularly controversial: your claim that the Bible misrepresents the origin of the soul. Could you elaborate on this? Cayce nodded slowly, his weathered hands resting on his knees. What we understand as the soul in conventional religious teaching has been greatly simplified and, in many ways, distorted from its true nature, he responded, his southern accent adding warmth to his words. The Bible presents a linear creation story, God forming man from dust and breathing life into him. But the truth about our souls is far more ancient and complex than a single moment of divine breath. The interviewer leaned forward. Are you suggesting the biblical account is completely false? Not false, Cayce corrected gently. Incomplete. Written in metaphor and symbol that, when taken literally, loses the deeper truth. The soul wasn't created at the moment of Adam's formation or at our individual births. Souls existed long before the physical world was manifested. A tension filled the room. Cayce paused, seemingly accessing information beyond ordinary consciousness, his eyes growing distant as though viewing another reality altogether. In my readings, it became clear that souls were created in the beginning with God, as sparks of the divine fire itself. We were created as spiritual entities, in a state of perfect communion with the Creator, long before the physical universe came into being. The Bible hints at this when it states, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you," but doesn't fully explore the implications. The interviewer frowned. So you're saying our souls didn't originate at conception or birth? Precisely, Cayce nodded. The soul is ancient beyond human comprehension. Each soul was created in the beginning, not the beginning of Earth or even the universe, but at the very beginning of spiritual creation. The Bible compresses this vast spiritual history, focusing primarily on physical creation and humanity's relatively recent journey. That's certainly different from traditional teaching, the interviewer noted, scribbling notes. But why would this information be suppressed? Cayce smiled patiently. Consider what this means. If souls existed before physical creation, then we existed in a state of divine consciousness before taking physical form. This transforms our understanding of purpose. We aren't merely creations being tested for worthiness. We are divine beings on a journey back to our source. The religious institutions that gained power through positioning themselves as gatekeepers between humans and God would find this threatening. If each soul has direct divine origin and connection, the need for intermediaries diminishes. The interviewer shifted uncomfortably. Your reading suggests something even more controversial, that souls chose to experience physical reality? Yes, Cayce's voice took on a tone of certainty. The biblical story of the fall is a metaphorical representation of a profound spiritual choice. Souls, curious about creative potential and the experience of individuality, voluntarily entered the physical dimension. This wasn't a punishment, but an opportunity for growth through experience. He paused, choosing his words carefully. The Bible presents this as a single event, Adam and Eve's expulsion from Eden. The truth is that it represents a gradual process of souls becoming increasingly identified with physical existence, forgetting their spiritual nature. What's described as sin was actually the natural consequence of identifying with separation rather than oneness. The interviewer looked skeptical. That contradicts fundamental Christian doctrine about original sin. It reframes it, Cayce corrected. The separation from our divine nature, our true fall, was not a punishment for disobedience, but a natural consequence of choosing to experience individuality and physical existence. The knowledge of good and evil represents the dualistic perception that comes with physical consciousness, replacing the unified awareness of spiritual existence. Cayce's eyes took on a distant look again. My readings consistently revealed that souls existed in a state of perfect communion with God, possessing divine attributes and creative potential. The desire to exercise this creative potential, to know oneself as a creator, led to exploration of physical dimensions. The Bible allegorizes this as eating forbidden fruit, but it was simply the natural exploration of consciousness. Each soul chose its own path into materiality for the purpose of growth and the eventual return to divine consciousness, but with the added richness of experience. The interviewer appeared troubled. If what you're saying is true, why isn't this clearly stated in Scripture? Cayce smiled compassionately. Much was indeed recorded, but remember that Scriptures were compiled and edited by humans with specific theological agendas. The Gospel of Thomas, excluded from the canonical Bible, states, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." This points to the divine spark within each soul. Additionally, the concept of reincarnation, essential to understanding the soul's journey, was deliberately removed from Christian teaching during the Second Council of Constantinople in 553 CE, despite being part of early Christian understanding. The interviewer looked surprised. "You're suggesting reincarnation was originally part of Christian teaching?" "Yes," Cayce nodded confidently. Origen, one of the most respected early church fathers, taught pre-existence of souls and something akin to reincarnation. Jesus himself, when speaking of John the Baptist, said, "This is Elijah who was to come." These teachings were systematically removed because they didn't serve the emerging power structure of the church. Cayce leaned back, his expression serious. The Bible's simplified narrative of soul creation served a purpose, making complex spiritual concepts accessible to people of varied understanding. But as humanity evolves in consciousness, we're ready for deeper truth. The interviewer looked thoughtful. According to your readings, what is the actual relationship between the soul and God? The soul, Cayce began slowly, is not merely a creation of God, but an individualized expression of God. Think of the ocean and a wave. The wave is not separate from the ocean, but a temporal expression of it. Similarly, each soul is God expressing through individuality for the purpose of creative experience. This is what Jesus meant when he said, "I and the Father are one, and you are gods." He wasn't speaking metaphorically, but stating a literal spiritual truth about our nature. We are not separate from the Creator, but expressions of the Creator experiencing itself through countless perspectives. The interviewer appeared to struggle with this concept. That sounds almost blasphemous to conventional religious teaching. Cayce smiled gently. It appears blasphemous only if we maintain the illusion of separation. The mystical core of all religions points to this truth. The biblical declaration that humans are made in the image of God hints at this, but has been interpreted as a mere resemblance rather than a shared essence. He continued, his voice growing more passionate. My readings consistently showed that the soul's journey isn't about earning salvation, but about remembering our true nature. Salvation isn't being rescued from an external hell, but awakening from the illusion of separation. The Bible speaks of being born again, but this isn't merely accepting a set of beliefs. It's the profound awakening to our divine nature, our pre-existent soul identity. Jesus taught this when he said, "The kingdom of heaven is within you." The divine reality isn't distant. It's the core of our being. The room fell silent as Cayce paused, seeming to gather energy. The interviewer waited, sensing something profound was coming. "There's another aspect of soul origin that contradicts simplified biblical teaching," Cayce continued. Soul development occurs through experience across multiple dimensions and incarnations. The biblical timeline of roughly 6,000 years since Adam is a mere fragment of the soul's true journey. My readings revealed that souls have been incarnating on Earth for tens of thousands of years. Some even participated in now-vanished civilizations like Atlantis and Lemuria. Before Earth, many souls experienced other dimensional realities. This vast history is compressed in Genesis into mere days of creation. The interviewer looked astonished. "You're suggesting human souls have a history extending far beyond biblical chronology?" "Absolutely," Cayce nodded. "Archaeological evidence now confirms human presence far earlier than biblical timelines suggest. These weren't soulless beings, but our own souls in earlier incarnations, learning and growing through experience. The Bible describes creation as completed. On the seventh day, God rested. But creation is ongoing, and souls continue to evolve through their experiences. Spiritual evolution doesn't contradict biblical teaching when properly understood. It fulfills it." The interviewer shifted in his seat. "Mr. Cayce, your readings often mention the Akashic records. How do these relate to the soul's origin?" Cayce's face brightened. "The Akashic records are the complete vibrational record of every soul's journey, every thought, feeling, and action ever experienced. When I accessed information in my trance state, I was reading these records. They confirm that souls existed in a state of divine consciousness before choosing physical experience. The Bible references a book of life containing all names. This is a simplified description of the Akashic records. These records hold the true history of each soul, far more extensive than any physical scripture could contain." The interviewer nodded slowly, processing this information. "How does this understanding of the soul's origin change how we should live?" Cayce leaned forward, his eyes intense. "It changes everything. If we recognize ourselves as ancient, divine consciousness temporarily experiencing physical reality for growth, our priorities transform. Material achievement becomes secondary to spiritual awakening. Jesus taught, "What does it profit a man to gain the whole world, but lose his soul?" With deeper understanding, we see he wasn't warning about eternal punishment, but reminding us not to become so identified with physical existence that we forget our divine nature. When we understand our souls originated in divine consciousness, we recognize our inherent worthiness. We don't need to earn God's love. We're already expressions of that love. Our purpose becomes remembering and manifesting our divine nature in physical reality. The interviewer appeared moved by Cayce's words. After a moment of reflection, he asked, "If the soul wasn't created as described in Genesis, what does this mean for humanity's relationship with God?" Cayce smiled warmly. "It means our relationship is far more intimate than typically taught. We're not separate beings observing God from a distance, or merely creations serving a creator. We're individualized expressions of God, experiencing physical reality. This is why Jesus taught that the greatest commandment is to love God and love others as ourselves, because at the soul level, we are all expressions of the same divine consciousness. Separation is the illusion, oneness is the reality." Cayce's voice grew stronger, more resolute. "The most profound truth, censored from biblical teaching, is that divinity isn't external to us. It's our very essence. Christ consciousness isn't unique to Jesus, but the awakened state available to every soul who remembers their true nature. Jesus didn't come to be worshipped, but to demonstrate what each soul is capable of when fully awakened to its divine nature. The things that I do, you shall do also, and greater things than these shall you do." He was speaking literally about our potential. The interviewer sat silently for a moment, visibly processing this radical perspective. These ideas seem to undermine the authority of religious institutions. They undermine authority based on fear and separation, Cayce corrected gently. But they support spiritual communities based on love and awakening. True spiritual leadership doesn't control through fear, but guides through love. Cayce straightened in his chair, his presence suddenly filling the room. The greatest suppression in religious history wasn't of specific texts, but of the direct mystical experience that confirms these truths. When Constantine made Christianity the state religion of Rome, the emphasis shifted from personal spiritual experience to standardized belief. The Bible contains profound truth, but its interpretation has often been controlled to maintain power structures. The literal interpretation of soul creation serves hierarchical religious systems, while the deeper truth empowers individual spiritual authority. The interviewer appeared to struggle with a personal question, finally asking, "How can someone verify what you're saying? These are extraordinary claims." Cayce's expression softened. "The verification comes through direct spiritual experience. Seek and ye shall find, knock and the door shall be opened. Meditation, prayer, and compassionate service thin the veil between physical consciousness and soul awareness." Throughout history, mystics of all traditions have accessed these same truths. Teresa of Avila, Meister Eckhart, the Sufi poets, Hindu sages, Buddhist masters. Their teachings align remarkably when we look beyond theological differences to the experiential core. Jesus taught, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." This knowing isn't intellectual acceptance, but direct experience of our divine nature. It's available to anyone willing to look beyond dogma to the living reality within. The interview continued well into the night, with Cayce sharing insights that would challenge conventional spiritual understanding for generations. His teachings on divine origin weren't meant to but to deepen it, replacing blind belief. As humanity continues to these once censored increasingly resonate with the truth about our souls, their divine origin, ancient journey, and ultimate destiny, offers a profound sense of purpose and connection in a world often focused on material concerns. The records of Edgar Cayce's readings remain one of the most comprehensive sources of information about the soul's true nature and journey. While religious institutions may have suppressed these perspectives, the truth about our spiritual origin continues to emerge through direct experience, inspiring countless individuals to recognize their divine essence. The greatest revelation isn't that the Bible misrepresented the soul's origin, but that no written text could fully capture the magnificent truth of who we truly are, eternal spiritual beings temporarily experiencing physical reality for the purpose of growth, creative expression, and the eventual conscious return to our divine source. The interviewer finally asked the question that seemed to encompass all others. If you could summarize the truth about the soul's origin in one statement, what would it be? Cayce closed his eyes briefly, then opened them with a gaze of remarkable clarity. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Our souls weren't created at birth or even at the beginning of earth. They are eternal expressions of divine consciousness, temporarily focused in physical reality for the purpose of growth through experience. This isn't blasphemy, but the ultimate affirmation of divine love, that God would individualize as countless souls to experience all aspects of creation, eventually to return to unity with the enrichment of experience. This is the great journey described in Jesus' parable of the prodigal son, not a fall from grace, but a journey of experience and triumphant return. As our interview concludes, I invite you to sit with these ideas, not as beliefs to be accepted or rejected, but as possibilities to explore through your own inner knowing. The truth about your soul's origin isn't found in ancient texts alone, but in the quiet voice of your own higher consciousness. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this profound exploration. We value your thoughts on this perspective. Please share them in the comments below as we read and consider everyone. If these ideas resonated with you, your like helps share this wisdom with others seeking deeper understanding. Subscribe to our channel for more spiritual insights that bridge ancient wisdom with evolving consciousness. Remember, as Edgar Cayce himself might say, you are not merely a body with a soul, you are a soul with a body, an eternal spark of divinity on a magnificent journey of remembering who you truly are.